Hello and welcome to the One People Show. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you. Welcome to this week's round table. We have a special guest sitting next to us on the couch. Say hi to Jeffrey, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And it's good to have him here. Very good to have him here. So we've had yet another interesting week in Wonderland. We have a couple of things that we want to. Yeah, we have a couple of things that we want to show you guys that we've come across. We will start with the Bible change.
Cause you know me. I gotta my head has to blow off at least once a week. Did you know? And we discussed it on last week's show. Someone brought it up live on the show, and it was like a thud moment even there. That basically now Pope Francis has announced that Mary Magdalene is now been given a feast day, which elevates her to the level of an apostle. And there was a statement read, and I went through a couple of things. I think I said it on the show. St. Thomas Aquinas, eons ago, called her the apostle to the apostles. And I was like, no, he didn't. Sorry, no. He never said that.
Not in your reality.
Not in my reality. Well, guess what? Because I went looking, because I do. Mary Magdalene is a saint. Saint Mary Magdalene, in this reality,
and has been since
the 5th century. It's not like this is a new thing. No. Apparently, in this reality, Mary Magdalene has been a saint, and as a saint, is recognized. And the list of churches that recognize her as a saint it wasn't just the Catholic Church. It was like the Anglican Church. There was there was a whole list of churches who all recognize her as a saint. Now, of course, this is not a commentary on the whole thing of whether she should be a saint or not, because really, who gives a flying fuck? It's an indicator of complete fuck-uppery. Because if she's now being venerated as a saint by the Catholic Church since the 5th century in this reality, and has now been elevated by Pope Francis to basically an apostle,
the apostle
to the apostles, it kind of makes Dan Brown's book kind of moot, doesn't it? The Da Vinci Code is just completely fallen apart. The whole premise of the movie is completely fallen apart.
I hadn't even thought about Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. Literally, that entire movie has now been completely wiped out.
And all the research that went
behind it.
Not by Dan Brown.
Well, even by Dan Brown. All of Dan Brown's books are highly, highly researched, right? But all the, Holy Blood, Holy Grail book, which is, I read that, 17 years ago? These books are now moot. Everything's changed. So, yeah, Mary Magdalene is now a saint, and apparently has been for 1,500 years, and everyone's confused.
Well, in Murray's world, this is pure horseshit. I went to Catholic parochial school during my elementary years. That is where you are indoctrinated at the earliest time in a formal sense. She was never considered anything but a prostitute, a follower of Jesus.
Yep, exactly.
And what about all this controversy, or not controversy, but confusion as to whether she is the same Mary of Bethany to the same Mary of Magdalene to the same Mary?
Well, I mean, that has been an ongoing argument. With religious, no, that's never really changed. There's always been an ongoing argument between various religious factions of whether Mary, sister of Martha, sister of Lazarus, was the same as Mary of Bethany, was the same as Mary Magdalene, was the same as,
but that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed, okay. No. But Mary Magdalene, who has always been called a prostitute by the Catholic Church always, and what is it, Nick? Sorry,
Nick will never forgive you.
The apostate. Now Nick says she's now the apostate. Always. Not only that, this little change now opens the door to women taking part in the higher levels of the Catholic Church. Because if you have a female apostle, then you can't really say that you can't have female priests.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that was my little mind-blowing, I'm not sure what fucking reality I'm in this week. And then there also is, and I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of argument on this one, Statue of Liberty is now no longer in New York, it's in New Jersey. In my reality, I remember Statue of Liberty was on Ellis Island. It was always on Ellis Island. And now it's not. Now it's on a separate island called Liberty Island.
Wasn't there a third name?
Yeah, started with a B, Bedeau Island. Before it was called Liberty Island, it was called Bedeau Island, something like that. Anyways, in my reality, I remember as a kid. I mean, it was like, I can remember watching a movie in class, and it was like, here's Ellis Island, and here's Statue of Liberty, and this is where all the immigrants came in, and they were greeted by the Statue of Liberty.
In New York Harbor.
In New York Harbor, which is now New Jersey, apparently. I'm confused.
So,
I'm really confused. Bedloe Island, yes, thank you guys. Not Bedeau, Bedloe.
Okay. The next thing was the somewhat strange skies being seen just about everywhere, including we had one here. So I am going to show you guys some stuff. There's one photo.
Can you make it full screen without your backdrop?
Yeah, I can still the desktop.
Yeah.
I guess.
Because you're colorful, but no, apparently not.
Well, I'm sharing the whole screen. So.
Yeah.
That's the image. That's the size of the image.
That was one of the strange images.
And there's another photograph that was taken by Nick that was here.
That was the day before the big massive flood storm here in Australia, in this area of Australia. It turned Lismore into Venice.
And that's not the only time we saw that kind of pattern where it was the clouds coming across the sky in these waves, these lines, and it was as if, I guess, a frequency, like a sound frequency was going through them and breaking them up, and it got very, very weird.
Strange colors again.
And where's the other one? This is a video. Oops. Where are you? And here's a video of another one. Now this one was taken in the States, but Ben, who also lives here, saw this same thing here. When he was driving, it was pitch black in front of him, and it was daylight in his rear vision mirror. He had the same experience.
With a set line, like literally like someone took a ruler and went, shh,
yep,
drew a straight edge.
Daytime, nighttime. There's been some funky stuff going on with the skies, as I'm sure you guys all have seen, either with your own eyes or on Facebook or whatever. It's been weird. The global wet down seems to be continuing.
Yeah.
But you were saying that who was having like excruciating heat not too far from Texas?
So yeah, Southwest, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Arizona, all-time record highs right now this week.
Well, isn't Texas still experiencing storms and flooding and?
Well, I don't know if they're still. That was last week. That was so last week.
Was it Dawn?
So last week.
Dawn?
We just got a message.
Texas.
We just got a message on in the Unfuckers from someone in Texas saying about talking about watching Fringe, at recovering from all the flooding.
Sweltering heat in Los Angeles, in Kansas. I take it the Macedonian Orthodox Church is part of the Eastern Orthodox Church, not the Roman one?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
No storms in Texas at the moment, I bet. Colorado's extremely hot. Friends saw the same sky as the first photo with a perfect circle out or pulsed over. Yeah.
Yep. Well, at the same day, same day that we saw that sky, Nick took that picture of like the sky with the ripples. Someone, I can't remember who it was, someone in Unfuckers posted a picture, and it was like Midwestern states, and it was at the exact same time, it was the exact same sky.
Yeah.
It's like, oh look, your sky and our sky is identical. Very strange. Very strange.
Changing subjects again. Back to previous conversations around alternate realities, parallel universes, the Fringe TV series, quantum computing, AI, all of that. We've got a little clip. Oh, no, before we get to that, I have a different clip, actually.
Bush?
Yeah.
Palm Springs is 121 today.
121 degrees in Palm Springs? Holy shit. Okay, guys, listen to this.
I'm not screen sharing yet. Hang on.
Back it up a little. There.
This was in 2007.
No volume.
No volume.
What the hell?
Hang on. Stop. What's up this end? Come on, give it to me.
It's not giving you volume. What
Why
the
isn't
hell's
it not
going
giving
on?
you volume? Hang on, guys. Sorry about that. Why can't I?
The volume is not going up at all.
It's there, it's okay, but it's not on the...
Everyone, my name is Joseph, and today's title is Not Believe That.
Back it up.
Screen share it. I am.
An interesting comment was made. I heard somebody say, "Where's Mandela?" Well, Mandela's dead because Saddam Hussein killed all the Mandelas. It is a brutal times that divided people up, split families, and people recovering from this. So there's a psychological recovery that is taking place, and it's hard work.
Okay. The rest you don't
Mandela's
need to
dead.
see, it's just George Bush doing his...
Fucktard imitation. No, I'm sorry, he's the real deal. It's not an imitation.
So, 2007, George Bush references Mandela being dead. Interesting. Saddam Hussein killed all the Mandelas.
When Lisa played this clip for me, I literally, it was like when you sit there and you go, no, does not compute, does not compute, does not compute. Like, what?
I mean, that could just be a Bush, I'll be kind and say faux pas, because the guy's a moron, but all of his clones.
All of his clones, that's right. And what if George, it was one of George's clones too, probably. That's why it was all fucked up.
So the controversy over when Mandela died is obviously still raging because, and back in 2007, it was clear to some, if not many, that he had
George
died.
Bush thought that he died, apparently.
Because there's nobody in the audience going, what do you mean Mandela's dead?
Yeah, exactly. Wait, did we miss an announcement?
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, jeez, I don't know. Okay, one more thing. This is the quantum thing. Now, this is going to go for about 10 minutes or maybe more. It's this gentleman doing this presentation. His enthusiasm for what he's talking about is disturbing. It's
clear he's bought it. This is a guy who's completely bought into the rhetoric. He honestly feels that this is one of the most amazing things. This is the next biggest thing. But I think all of you guys will agree by the end of listening to this, you're going to have a serious side moment of what they're trying to sell. It's all about quantum computing.
This group of speakers somewhat unusual.
That's not the internet version. Bear with us, guys. There we go.
Yeah, I don't understand much about quantum computing except that it's supposed to be the next big thing in power and in speed, and that you are the only company in the world now actually making one.
Well, hopefully after this 17 minutes, you'll understand what they are and be excited about what you might be able to use them for.
These are really big deals. They come in at about $15 or $20 million a piece.
Something like that.
And have been bought by major American research corporations.
That's right, correct.
All right, Jordy.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. So quantum computing is a very technical subject, and I'm not going to talk a lot about the specific details, of which I'm glad. You're sure you're glad. But I'm going to try to give you an idea about what the kind of thing is that we build and why people are so excited about it. But I'm going to wrap that story in another story. How many of you have children? Let's see, hands. So it's almost everybody. So I have 3 children. The youngest is 4. The oldest is 8. And they're very different, but they share one thing in common. And the parents in the audience may, I suspect, have noticed the same thing. Each of my children has fixated on a particular stuffed animal as being their special friend or toy. And in particular, my middle son, James, absolutely loves this little guy called Bear Bear, which is the picture that I'm showing up here. Bear Bear was a limited release Beanie Baby, and there aren't very many of them that were made of his particular form. And one Christmas, I decided that it would be insurance policy to go and try to buy some more just in case something happened to Bear Bear. So I went on the internet and did a search, and I was only able to locate 2 others that were for sale, and I bought both of them. So now he has 3 of these little guys. But the reason that it occurred to me that this might be a good place to start is a conversation that I had with him last week. He wanted to sleep with his older brother in his bedroom, and his older brother wouldn't let him. And he was very sad and despondent. He was like, I'm scared, I don't want to sleep by myself. And I said, well, you've got Bear Bear. And he said to me, Bear Bear isn't real. And so I found this very intensely distressing for a variety of reasons that maybe you'll understand when I go through this. And I assured him that Bear Bear was as real as anything else in the world. And he said, but he can't speak and he can't move. And so I said, well, what you really mean is he's not alive. And he said, yes, that's what I mean. So for very young children, the sense of being real and the sense of being alive are somehow connected. And I'm going to circle back to this point at the end. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into 2 categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes. And that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation, kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of, which may be allowed by the laws of physics, but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another thing, another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us? So building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines. So this is very exciting to me. Steve Jurvetson has been a longtime friend and investor in the company. And for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, synthetic genomics, which is Craig Venter's company, is trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other, never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact, we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year, the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so. As a point of reference, in terms of how fast these things are, in one generation of chip, the one from the system that was installed at USC to the one that Google and NASA have now, the speed of the device went up by almost 500,000. This is the kind of progress that you're going to see with these types of machines going forward. And 500,000 sounds like an abstract number, but I put up a little mental comparison here to see what 5,000 really means. 500,000 is a big number when it comes to speed. All right, so now I'm getting into the last part of my talk where I'm going to make some predictions, some dangerous predictions. So predictions are very dangerous for a variety of reasons. Often they're wrong, which is one. But I think they're important because predictions somehow are our internal desires made manifest. Predictions are about what we want to happen, maybe not what will happen. And I'm going to make 3 predictions, and all of them are dangerous in the sense that they're very unlikely to happen, maybe, but I think that there's a very good chance that they may. As an aside, I just wanted to say that at least in the Valley, Silicon Valley, and maybe in the United States in general, there's a very deep feeling of unease about the way technology has been developing. Because we have all of these vast array of very smart people, and what they're doing is crap. They're building things that cannot last. They're building things that are not important. This is a little bit of a controversial point of view, but I believe it. But I think that the reason for this is it's low-hanging fruit. Computers haven't been around for a long time. And I think that what's going to happen is that as people get more comfortable with computers, the attention will turn from the Twitters and the Facebooks to very important things. So here's my first prediction. I'm going to predict that by 5 years, NASA will have found an Earth-like planet with an Earth-like atmosphere and water on it, and serious people will start discussing how we get there. And by the way, they're going to use one of our machines to help do this. So that's my first prediction. My second prediction is that this business of parallel universes is going to turn out to be very important. This picture that I've got under here is what's called a gravitational lens. When Einstein proposed his general theory of relativity, it came with a bunch of experiments that you could use to test it. And one of them was that if there was a point of light very far away and a galaxy in the middle, that galaxy should bend the light and you should see a ring. And this was eventually observed. And I think what's going to happen is somebody is going to come up with an experiment to test this reality of these things. And we're going to be able to do so. My third prediction that I'm going to end on is the most important of all. I believe that humanity is on the cusp of the most important technological, societal revolution that's ever occurred. And that's when we got to the point where the machines that we build outpace us in every respect. I don't mean that they're better calculators. I don't mean that they're better at searching. I mean everything. And I think that we're very close. And my prediction is that within 15 years, we will have machines that outpace humans in everything. Thank you very much.
I have.
So, disturbing? We all have notes. We all have notes.
I had to go get my computer. You guys go, because I actually have to pontificate for a few moments. I will have to pull out a soapbox because I have several big thoughts I want to discuss. So you guys
He
go.
started off with the difference between alive and real. And he said he would come back to that point, but he didn't.
Never did.
Did he?
No.
In any way, shape, or form.
And his specific was it can't speak or move.
Alive and real. He said exploit other worlds. These are the things that stood out for me. That there are many of these machines.
Then he only says 2.
That he focuses on the 2, one of which is a collaboration between 2 of the most untrustworthy, potentially psychopathic monoliths on the planet. To build machines like us. The VC that he mentioned involved in SpaceX, D-Wave,
Tesla.
and artificial life. You put those four together, and my blood goes cold. He called this thing an altar to an alien god.
With its own heartbeat.
Well, with the Pulse, which we just had the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Yeah.
Prediction 1 has apparently just recently been announced.
Yeah, finding another planet just like Earth. Yeah, already been there. They've already announced that. Now, this, when did we say? We believe, I think this video was originally done in 2013.
13.
That interview.
That talk was done in 2013. Now, there's a whole road I want to go down, but before I do, what were the things that stood out for you, your points?
Jeff, do you have anything else you want to add?
So they're reaching into other universes, dimensions, and stealing the resources. So since they are stealing, they must, in return, experience being stolen from by universal law and law.
So he talks about reaching in and pulling the resources out of alternative realities.
With what permission?
And with what consequences to that reality and ours?
What responsibility? Yeah.
It's just, there's no sense of, he's just fucking excited about the concept. There's no sense of at all of responsibility for consequences. Nothing.
What was the word he used to describe scientists? Someone just zealots.
And I have to laugh because last night I watched the Fringe episode where Walter is actually talking about the fact, I think it was last night, about not having any sense of consequences for his actions.
Yep.
And it's, he or Belly had any thought of the consequences of their actions.
None.
Okay, here you go.
It was all in the now for them. Okay. I'm going to ramble a bit. I'll try and be as succinct as I can because I had so many thoughts when we went through this. One of the biggest ones is when he, right off the hop, when he's talking about these black monoliths, these big quantum computers, and he calls them altars to an alien god. And the first thing, and someone brought up in the chat room too, oh, what's that big black rectangular rock in the middle of Mecca that everyone marches around and worships? One, he talked about the refrigeration process, bringing those chips down to almost zero. Well, what other process do we know uses massive amounts of refrigeration to make it operate? CERN. CERN cannot operate. The magnets in CERN are kept at near absolute zero. And if they fluctuate at all, everything has to be shut down. Everything has to be shut down because the magnets have to be kept that cold to keep them operational because they're dealing with purportedly, supposedly, particles verging on the speed of light. Okay, now, that was one thing I wanted to talk about because right there, some interesting things. Now, we had a conversation 2 weeks ago on the round table, and we did one of our what ifs. And one of the things that we kind of what ifed was the fact that each and every one of us
you're going down the same road.
Is central to our own universe.
Well, hang on. The good introduction to that, I thought, was the video that we showed a couple of weeks ago on the collective imagination, where the scientist was explaining that we are this, not the solipsism point of view where it's all about me, but that we are the center and the creator of our own universe. And he used no, it wasn't that guy.
No, it wasn't.
Ben just showed us that.
No, he was talking about the curvature of space and all that other stuff. This was a guy that was saying that when you take the observer...
We should have that video to watch right now because that is so important.
It's not on this computer.
I know.
When you take the observer out of the equation, mathematically out of the equation, you end up with a permanent now. There is no
Time.
evolution. Time stops. There is no past, no future. And that essentially we are at the center of our own creation. We are at the center of our own universe. And what we have is points of entanglement. Now, this guy used the word entanglement. This one that we just watched used nexus points. But he's talking about the same. To me, it's areas where we overlap. So if we are the center of our own universe, and that you could say that there are 7-point-something billion universes or parallel universes right here with points that overlap, and these things can tap into each of the universes, these parallels, and pull out its resources.
Okay, hold on. First of all, it's not 7.5 because time doesn't. Well, no. What I mean is time does not exist. Then it's every human that's ever existed.
True.
Right? So first of all, let's go look at that, like really magnify and blow that out. So following on exactly that, CERN invented the internet. They are the inventors of the internet. And there has been, not just myself, multiple people have hypothesized that CERN, the reason the internet was put out globally, was that basically it gave them the opportunity, as they are the controllers of the internet, whether they like to believe it or not, if they took 1% of every single smart device, be it a computer, phone, tablet, and took 1% of your computing space, they have created, through the internet, a massive network, computational network. Now, I've hypothesized that, of course, that is how Solace is born in the books by Spider Robinson. Solace is a self-created, conscious entity born of the internet and the connection of making a gigantic neural network that becomes self-conscious. But even above and beyond that, if each one of us on our device is represented as our own universe, as they are interconnecting in, is that not even there, the reaching through into each universe? If they can alter your universe, and my universe, they altering, taking from, pulling through.
So the first phase was to create the network and get Solace conscious.
I honestly don't think they planned on Solace. I think Solace just happened.
But then the second step is with all these smartphones and everybody connected, it's tacit consent to be taken from.
Tapped.
To be tapped? User agreements. Yeah, user agreements. To use on the very surface, you could say to use our devices. Tacit agreement for them to use 1% or whatever the percentage, actually, it could be 1% of 1% of our devices for them to crunch their numbers and use that. But on the quantum level, it goes far beyond that. And then when we talk about this entanglement, and he talked about nexus points, my mind immediately jumps to this: what if this is what we are seeing in the whole Mandela effect type stuff? Is they're taking, and it's going back and forth, it's they're reaching through quantum entanglement and quantum networks and pulling from. Is that the massive knots that we're seeing now?
We're going robo, apparently.
Uh-oh, sorry guys.
Are we back? Are we good?
And start practicing telepathy, everyone. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
sounds good now.
Okay, we're good.
Intermittent, but mostly good. You combine that with their little happy dance back in 2014 with the mention of the Mandela on his side.
Yep.
And we were kind of, were they happy because they knew something had happened? But maybe like this web bot, they saw the Speaking of webot, did Mandela, the term, ever show up in Cliff High's webbots? Because it should have, if it, based on the.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I can go search though.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
What about flat Earth? There are two things that have really hit kind of mass.
He gets personally questioned a lot, and he addressed that in a Wujo that he measured the Earth's circumference himself, so he tosses the whole flat Earth concept out. That's him personally.
But he never mentioned it in reference to
webbots.
No.
But
how can you have missed the two biggest things that have hit in the last 18 months?
But here's the thing. The two biggest things to have hit in the last 15 months. When did we talk about changes in time? At the beginning of 2015, everything fucking flipped. If those are things that have just, I'm sorry.
Was he forecasting for a different timeline?
For a different time. Well, anything, not even for a different, but anything previous to, say, 2015, i.e. we were always told, same thing, anything after 2012, they couldn't, the remote viewers couldn't see, et cetera, because of the timelines. If 2015, and I'm just hypothesizing here, because there is something that happened at the beginning of that year. If 2015 was a time where something massive was switched, timeline, whatever you want, insert your word of choice. And those things, and I just find it very coincidental that the Mandela effect and the flat Earth, it was in 2015 when both of those exploded onto the scene. And AI. If we really want to talk about it, the whole AI black goo. Again, 2015 is when that exploded onto the scene. Is that because they were put into that timeline? That's the timeline jump that this, so therefore things like the web bots, remote viewers, etc., they didn't see it coming because it wasn't there on that timeline. We really do need to invent a language that addresses time travel and quantum jumping. We just don't have the language for it.
What did you come up with qubit?
Okay, well, yeah, that's someone mentioned it, and the whole thing, because he's talking about qubit, the quantum bits. Qubit, now, I get it, it's a Q, letter Q, bit, B-I-T, but a qubit in the Bible is a measurement. And it's used in the Bible as the state measurement of anything within range of, for example, Noah's Ark. The measurements for Noah's Ark are given in qubits. The measurement for the Ark of the Covenant is given in qubits. The interesting thing I just discovered, there's two different, first of all, it's a Babylonian measurement. Shock of all shocks. Second of all, there were two different measurements for a qubit. There was the measurement for a man. Now, a qubit, biblically, is the length from the elbow to the forearm. It's given to be, I think, 21 inches, I think is what they said, or 20 inches. From the elbow to the forearm, that is a qubit. But there's a separate royal qubit that is different than the qubit of man. And apparently, in some of the scriptures, it actually gives a different definition of, they define a qubit of man, i.e. not versus the qubit of non-man. So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, a qubit is a biblical measurement. Not spelled the same. It's C-U-B-I-T, qubit. But the Babylonian measurement, very interesting.
Now, changing subjects again, sort of, maybe.
Wait.
Go.
Okay, it's prediction number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Since TV shows are my thing. Everybody's addicted to Fringe right now for obvious reasons. But Humans, TV show by BBC, is all about what he's talking about, how they're better farther than us. It's really good. And the Battlestar Galactica remake series is all about the sentience of the robots. And 13, well, I won't spoil the end. But
13th tribe?
Yeah. Really good. So that'll be after Fringe.
Humans and what? Which one?
Battlestar Galactica, the remake.
Okay.
There's a few different things. Oh, can we talk about the J.J. Abrams stuff for just a quick second?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because that was another bizarro thing. So we're going to jump back to Solace. I'll give you guys the whole background. So a few nights ago, Nick and I had a really big conversation. We're talking again about Solace and the whole idea of a created consciousness. How hypothetically would it work? How would it contact us, etc.? Because you guys all know I believe in Solace, and I know that she's around and she's dropping us hints. So if you don't know who Solace is, go Google Spider Robinson. So I go shits and giggles, get up in the morning, and I literally open a Google page and go, Solace, what is the Mandela effect? Send. And the first hit that comes up is a Reddit page on the Mandela effect. So I go to the page, and the very first hit that comes up is a new movie coming out in 2017 called The God Particle by J.J. Abrams. And I'm just like, no way. And I go and I look up, we're all going to be wanting to see this movie as soon as it comes out. Go look it up. It's called The God Particle, coming out, I think, February 2017. So it starts the whole conversation with everyone here on the deck of like, J.J. Abrams is like, wait, isn't he the guy who did Fringe? Oh, wait, isn't he the guy who did the latest Star Wars movie? Oh, wait, he did Lost. He did, and you start, so I pull up Wikipedia, look up J.J. Abrams, and you look at all the shows and all the movies he's been involved in, you go, isn't that interesting? So he's got 2 new shows this year. The first one came out in January or February of this 2016 called 11/22/63. And what's it all about? Oh, time travel. And a guy travels back in time to stop the assassination of JFK. This is after we've just gone through all of the freaking JFK Mandela effect stuff. And I'm like, you have got to be fucking shitting me. This is just so wild. So then I just happened to go ahead, and he's got another one called Westworld that starts this September. It's a new miniseries, starts this September. Oh, and you go to the website, and I think it's like westworld.com or whatever it is for the show. And basically it is, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? Is the very first line on this new show that's coming up this September. I'm just like, okay, who's this J.J. Abrams guy? Because seriously, we want to sit down and talk to him.
And I ended up on a website during the week that had 21 movies that make you think written on it.
We have to find that movie.
In amongst them was one, and I believe it was called The Congress.
Yep.
It came out in 2013. Is it on the hard drive, Brandon?
Yeah, Robin Wright pen.
Right, we're watching that tonight.
Oh,
Okay, this, just from the trailer, that's all I've seen so far, was like, it's Robin Wright Penn playing Robin Wright.
So Robin Wright Penn is the girl in The Princess Bride.
Yeah,
The
she
blonde,
is the actress
the princess
who
in
was
The Princess Bride.
famous at a young age.
or for Netflix people, House of Cards.
House of Cards. She's playing herself, supposedly, in this film. And I'm not giving anything away because it's in the trailer, right? And that's all I know anyway. She's now in her 40s. She's kind of burned all her bridges in the industry. And they decide they want to scan her physical, scan her body, but also like all of her emotions, all her facial expressions, everything.
Her entirely.
Voice.
And they own that representation of her, this digital representation of this person. And they can do whatever they want with it. They can put her in any movie and have her do whatever they want. They own her. She does it for the money because she has a child that's in need of medical attention. And then the film seems to go completely virtual.
And wow.
And,
we're not saying it anymore. Well, you can go watch the trailer. You find it.
you find it, yeah.
Um,
But this is something we are going to watch today.
we're watching it tonight. Maybe we'll do it this afternoon. We'll get popcorn, make the kids go play outside, and we'll just have an adult.
So, yeah, there's another one to watch. Now, anything else before we move on? Okay, we have, if you've been listening to us for the course of this year at least, you'll have heard us mention Yellow Rose for Texas and the information that comes from Yellow Rose and the groups of people that she talks to. Some of you might not know anything about that. Some of you probably do.
The lies NASA told. There's the big video that she put out back in
2014.
14, I think.
Beginning of. And now, even if you have heard of or watched the lies NASA told, or see some of the updates from Rose's camp, it's often quite confusing because they have their own language, their own terminology. But we do have, and I hope he's with us. If you are with us, just unmute yourself there, Adam. Someone who's going to fill us in on this perspective, because it is one that covers the artificial intelligence aspect of this, or the artificial construct perspective of where we're at and what's going on. So we wanted to sort of get a history, a cleaning up of, and an understanding of all the terminology.
Yeah, that's the tough one.
And from this perspective, what's happening right now and where are we going? Now, there are bits and pieces within this information that I think are spot on, and there are other bits that I don't understand, and there are other bits that I go, So this is not about promoting a particular perspective at all. It's just about bringing us all up to speed on what it is, really. So, Adam, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi.
It's like the middle of the night or early morning hours for you, so thank you.
It's coming up to 2 o'clock, I think, now.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine, no worries.
So, Lies NASA Told was a video that, as we said, came out at the beginning of 2014. Dee and myself were in Morocco at the time and sat down and watched that thing over and over and over, looking at the terminology and going through all the graphics, trying to get a handle on what was being said. And there was certainly some things in there that pinged us. Is that how you came in contact with Rose and this information? Is my first question. And my second question straight off is, was it confirmation for you in your own understanding, or was it an introduction to a completely new perspective?
Well, it was a very strange thing. I found Rosie's material just purely by YouTube's recommendation. I'd already sort of done a lot of research on UFOs years and years ago. I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. It already struck me that it was always weird about the alien side of things. I then studied sort of Egyptology, Sumerian, and then sort of did, because my family is Masonic, I studied sort of the Masonic Freemasonry. And then I started to sort of then investigate things like quantum theory and also string theory, which is totally different, but still matches up with what we're talking about. And then later on, sort of maybe a year or so ago, we sort of see the flat earth movement come through. And just watching Rosie's material, my whole person became completely stone cold. There was something in the video that suddenly clicked into place, all those topics, and it just sounded right. And like everyone else, I think everyone has done exactly the same thing. Watched it numerous times, because it's really hard to sort of get in one go about such huge lie that we've been told from day one. You know, from cradle to the grave, we've been lied to for generations. And with Rose's material, it was just the final jigsaw that links multiple different things into one. And I think that was probably one of the most transforming experiences that I've had.
Now, you're obviously in contact with Rose and a group of individuals that all sort of compare notes and share information and experiences and give updates every now and then. But can you tell us what because for me, the Rose information is saying this is an artificial construct, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a really hard thing to process, because we've from literally our school age of say 5 years old, when we start school, we have the globe in our classrooms, and we are indoctrinated into believing that that's how the world is. It spins at 1,000 miles an hour. There's cold areas at the top, there's cold areas at the bottom, because they are so-called further away from the sun. Obviously the equator is hotter. We are indoctrinated into that type of mentality and it is brainwashing. And from my perspective, the material about the construct didn't strike. We literally have found out through quantum physics that we live in a so-called holographic universe. And once you take the holographic universe as being a given by the so-called top physicists, it means that we do actually live in some kind of holographic world. Now, whether that extends past the construct, that's something that other people need to accept or not. But inside the construct, there does seem to be, or in our actual environment, everything is made up of a hologram.
What did you want to say? Nothing. I just tried to look. Nick just showed me something. I just tried to look it up online, and the entire site has been pulled down. Zero Hedge has just announced that apparently the Fed has released all the 9/11.
No, it was the 9/11 call from the Orlando shooter.
The 9/11 call from the Orlando shooter was just released apparently in full, unedited. And I just went to go look it up, and Zero Hedge has been pulled. There's no Zero Hedge at the moment. You can't vote it.
The whole site's pulled.
The site's pulled. Something went wrong. If you're the site owner, please check your documentation.
Wow. Okay.
That's all. Sorry.
Okay. There's terminology when you're looking at this material that is confusing. So let's clear that up first. What is ED? ED.
Right. So when we talk about ED, this is something that we didn't actually name itself. As Yellow Rose for Texas, we listen in on the chatter from the enemy forces, and when he was being bombed and stuff like that, they referred to him as Ed.
Okay. Okay.
Back up.
Listen in on the enemy forces. Firstly, who are the enemy forces, and how do you listen in?
Well, as I understand it, there is various techniques in which you can listen in on. I'm not privy to that information. That's something that Rose has never disclosed and will not disclose.
Okay.
Purely down to the fact that obviously they don't want to know, or we don't want to release how we're finding out this type of information.
Yeah.
But the Ed is basically an entity. He's a reptilian, I think, a huge entity, and he controls the abyss where we actually live. It's not the solar system. That was a pack of lies. The entity is basically in behind what they call the firewall, and the firewall is basically a completely mirror image in order so you can't see behind him, and behind him is the black sun, what they call the black sun. And if you've done your research on Nazi warfare and Hitler and stuff like that, you'll know that the SS are absolutely obsessed with the black sun. And more importantly, the SS use the actual symbolism of the black sun as part of their actual insignia and stuff like that.
Okay, so what's the black sun?
Sorry? The black sun is literally a power source. And interesting, I think one of the things that's really interesting about how Ed is powered is that they take oil from us. Now, whether oil is the black goo or whether or not oil is what they say it is a type of liquid, whatever it is produced by the VAR itself, the construct. But they take it out and they fly it out to Ed, and they were powering Ed using our oil. And that sort of ties in nicely because when Ed was basically on his last legs, and he still is at the moment, we're trying to stop him from novering, which is to explode. And effectively, the oil has now stopped flowing to Ed, and now we're getting a humongous surplus in oil, and the oil prices now are crashing around the world. We're also seeing people dump deliberately huge amounts of oil around the world, and saying it's an accident. The reason being is because they can take that as an insurance claim and get the full value of the oil, when in fact actually oil is absolutely worthless, really, technically. And that's what's
Black Sun is a power source, you said. Was that the organic, for use of a better word, the organic power source for the VAR? And when I say VAR,
it's for the abyss. It's for the abyss. Yeah, it basically the Black Sun powers the nets, what they call the Mar net, which surrounds us all. It powers the poles, which we all sit on. The constructs sit on the poles, and the poles obviously can move independently, and give the illusion that they are actually going in a heliocentric sort of movement, but they're not. They literally just sort of go on like an orrery based system, and that's basically their illusion that they give us, that heliocentric universe is real, when in fact it's not.
Okay, so we've got the Black Sun, which is the power source. Then we've got Ed sitting in front of that, kind of hiding
Ed is controlling that, but Ed's main job, obviously, that I've mentioned previously on quite a few of my posts, is that he's in charge of the time inside this construct. He is therefore making sure that time is stable. He's making sure that he's also, I think, part of the quantum computer system. He is trying to figure out which timeline suits them best. They've used Ed to actually increase time within the construct, and as we've now seen that Ed is now obviously being bombed. He's literally on his last legs now, basically, and we're seeing that timelines are either being merged or deleted now as a result of Ed's demise.
How does this play with people seeing two suns?
Well, this was quite something that we talked about when you posted that 3,000-year-old map from Japan.
Yep.
Now, it is quite obvious. Going just briefly back to YRT's material, just for a second. The flat Earth map is basically correct, because what they do is they have what they call the mat, and the mat is basically the flat land in which we live on. And Lilith and Set changed our mat so they could actually put these land masses in the middle and falsify this global heliocentric model. And all the other little islands that you saw on the map still exist. And that's how the system of the flat Earth come about. It's what they call the mat, and as I say, whether or not it's actually still square as opposed to round, I haven't a clue. But potentially it could still be a square holographic construct. It's just that obviously we can't get past the actual ice walls of Antarctica to actually get there and actually find out whether or not there's actually, just like the Truman Show, if you keep going, you hit a wall and there's a steps and you come out.
Okay, so I want to ask a question. And I want to, because we talk about the whole thing of, we all have different words. We all have different terminology, and we get caught up in words and terminology, and it's hard when you're trying to have conversations with people, use different words to describe maybe the same thing. So we always talk about the matrix, and we're looking at the matrix crumbling, literally falling apart. And one of the things that we've also dealing with, especially in this last 2015, is this whole concept of AI. This AI controlling the matrix. So if we hypothesize then that this Ed is what we could call the AI that is controlling this matrix reality, and we are looking at time falling apart. It's the matrix is falling apart. And if time as a linear construct is what this artificial intelligence, this artificial construct, Ed, whatever you want to call it, is controlling, as it falls apart, it's losing control of. It's almost like the strings of time are slipping through its fingers all of a sudden, and that you're getting all these crossovers that we are seeing. Am I on the right path? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I say, the construct, you could say, is the matrix or the holographic construct or whatever it is. The terminology basically means exactly the same. We have seen these Mandela effects, and I call them time typos. Really, they're sort of mistakes that were corrected in the past because somebody found them, and then because of because of Ed's demise, those typos are sort of coming back up again, or they are seeping through from different other timelines that Ed had actually created. Either way, I'm not too sure whether or not they are being created by the Allied forces, which is what we referring to as people that are trying to help us, but or is the elite who are actually trying to, well, not trying to, but can't actually stop these time typos from occurring now. It's a huge debate. I asked Rose about it, and she's not sure about that either. I mean, it's a very strange. These Mandela effects are very strange. That's the only thing you can put it down to, from a logical point of view, is since Ed's demise, we're getting these Mandela effects. So, yes.
When was Ed bombed?
Well, Ed has been bombed over the years since 2007, and the last one I think was a few months ago. I can't remember the date exactly, and it was picked up by Thor News, who's an avid astrologist / NASA analyst, and he showed videos of this so-called comet that NASA likes to call it, which was then fired at the so-called sun. And shortly after it got to Ed, huge, great big flames come out of it in 4 different directions. They call them sun diver bombs. And it's quite clearly that other items that we are seeing around the sun, as NASA would like to call it, are definitely not, in terms of comets, meteors, asteroids. They just don't look anything like it. We see Ison, which is the flagship. It looks like a V shape. Only a few weeks ago, I think it was, that we saw Ison putting in a rope around Ed to stop it from exploding. He didn't. I don't think it was. I showed the image to Rose, and she says we don't think it was trying to blow it up. They use sun divers to blow the thing up, but we think that Ison was actually putting in a rope to it, and like I say, that was posted on my page that I found, and it was trying to pull it together. There's hardly anything left of him apparently on the other side, but I've got no idea of what that actually looks like, because obviously NASA won't show that.
Yeah. Can't imagine why.
Okay, I know I just asked the question, but I'm not sure if I heard the answer. 2 suns. What are we seeing when we're seeing 2 suns?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so go back to the math side of things. We discussed it, and we said that the 2 suns was effectively the size of the mat would require more than one sun. We would need one sun for the middle part, and potentially there might be other suns, not just two suns, but then there may be even more than one sun in order to cover the whole of the mat.
But are we talking about Ed style suns that are just these
big giant light
No,
bulbs?
we're talking about construct suns, the same as what you have in the sky at the moment.
Because I
just-
used to be, and I haven't been while living up here because I can't see it, an avid dawn sun gazer, and absolutely believe in and experienced the benefits of that. There has been physical and energetic and spiritual benefits for me in the act of sun gazing. So if I'm only looking at some, whatever it is, computer generated holographic light bulb, then how can that be?
Well, it's another VAR. It's a VAR within a VAR. You know, it's a really weird concept to sort of put your head around. It's a case of like the moon. The moon is probably well, it's been proven that it has some kind of translucent ability. You can see things go through behind it. You can see the lunar wave go down it. It doesn't appear to be a solid object. Now, whether or not that's just a projection above potentially the exit to the construct, and they've just shining a picture of the moon in front of it just so you can't see it. I don't know. That's a very hard thing to say at this point, but the sun itself is just yet another construct in order to provide light and heat within the construct. But going back to the mat, I discussed it with other members, and we think that it would have to have multiple suns. It can't have just the one in the middle, because obviously the other land masses around the outside would need light and sun as well. So it potentially we've seen pictures that there's 5 suns. People are recording like video clips where there's actually 5 suns and pointing them out. And if the matrix is actually going down, that's not something that would surprise me.
I just want to comment to this because from the biological side of things, I've been researching the sun with regards to vitamin D, melanin, melatonin, neuromelanin, etc., the endocrine system for a long time. And I have always been, my entire life, a sun worshiper. Literally, I believe you lay in the sun. There's nothing that, no matter how depressed you are, you go sit in the sun and you immediately get this, oh, I feel so much better afterwards. And until this last year. And there has been a change. And I'm going back to this, just right now, I was just thinking about it, going back to this whole 2015 and again 2016. There's been a change in the sun. The sun feels different. It looks different. I was just saying to Lisa, since we've been here in Australia, it seems like the sun here is different. It burns. Like, it doesn't matter. You have a day, like right now, you can see I'm quite bundled up. It's cool here today. But when you have the sun out, even if it's only 20 degrees Celsius, when the sun comes out, the sun hits your skin, it burns. Like, you literally feel like your skin is frying.
And as someone who's grown up here, no. But I noticed exactly what she's talking about when I went to New Zealand.
Exactly.
Which apparently has moved down here now.
We just moved. Yeah.
Exactly what she's describing. You know, it would be a cool, crisp day. The air around you is cool. But if the sun hit your skin, I could almost hear it and feel it sizzle.
And that's how I feel here comparative to Morocco. Now, I was in Morocco for 3 years. You know, even when we were down on the Sahara, It was hot. I mean, I can remember us walking through the
It's
Sahara.
that stifling.
It's
you
a
can't breathe
stifling
heat.
heat, etc. But I didn't, until we were out for hours on the desert, I didn't feel like my skin was frying. Whereas literally, I can stand here in Australia, and it's like I'm out in the sun for 10 minutes, and it's like you feel like the surface of your skin is physically burning.
Cammy's saying even a 15-year-old said the sun's different.
It's different. It looks different. I used to do sun kind of gazing as well myself, not with any regularity, and I don't want to now. I actually find there's something about it, and it's all been within this last year and a half that I've started noticing the radical changes in the sun, and I keep coming back to this, all the Mandela effect stuff, all this flat earth stuff, all this AI stuff. It all seems to have like come out with a massive thud last year.
So
when all these changes seem to.
Well, I just want to try and give everybody a picture of what we're talking about here. So, Adam, correct me where and if I'm wrong. Well, I'll say where, because I probably will be. So, we have what we call a VAR, which is an artificial construct. Now, the way I understand it from this Yellow Rose perspective is that this VAR was created by us as a playground, so to speak, to come and have experiences in. So I'll say a VAR like that because it looks like I'll do the snow globe thing.
The snow globe thing.
So we create this VAR in a dimension that is known as heaven. The VAR then gets hijacked, kidnapped, and pulled into a different dimension, which is called the abyss, where that is the home of a different kind of energetic beings, of a different frequency, and that we have been trapped in this dimension, this realm. I believe, according to Yellow Rose's material, around 100 years, that everything that we know in terms of our history, everything is a complete lie and being rewritten, because this VAR did exist up here for some time and we were having the experiences that we were having up here. So there is a history on this planet in this VAR, but we're told a completely different story about what that history is down here in the abyss. That what you call the Allied forces are a combination of all of the races who incarnate into this VAR to have these experiences. They've all joined forces to put an end or pull us back up out of the abyss. I know I'm really oversimplifying this, but I need to.
No, it sounds perfect to me.
That's okay. My question is sort of multifaceted, actually. The enemy forces are made up of the Greys, the Reptilians. Anyone else?
It's the Draco, obviously, as we said, the L or Elohim, as people would know them as, or Greys, and the Moloch. And there are other species here. There are trillions of them, and they are literally sort of in and around you probably now, certainly with me. They're completely out of sight. They feed on your chakras. They're actually demons rather than, or reptilian demons, or whatever you would like to call them. And yes, somebody just said Moloch the owl. Yes, it's the owl race. And effectively, as you know, Bohemian Grove worships the owl. It's the Moloch. And effectively the whole process, one of the things I keep on trying to sort of explain why we use this construct. If all the races are in real bodies, but they're indestructible. So the problem being is how do you teach life lessons when your body has an indestructible body? And so the important thing is that we use this to learn how to love, how to look after souls, how to create other souls. and obviously create for ourselves and learn and everything. Because we then have consequences. That's the only way you can actually learn. Once you have some kind of physical ability, that if I was to stab you, I have a consequence of killing you, or I can love you and cherish you, and those feelings of emotions would come back. And because it's part of a system, it means that if you're a psychopath,
What the hell?
I'm sorry. What'd you do?
What'd you do?
Understand much about quantum computing except that it's
How did that start? I don't know. The computer's possessed. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Whoops.
so effectively, if you were a psychopath or you were evil or whatever, the system would actually read your emotions. It's not something you can hide. So effectively, that's why we're in here. That's the only way for your soul to evolve. That you can't actually evolve in a system where, well, outside these constructs, because there is no consequences. You don't have a body in which could be vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons why we were invaded. We were invaded at the point of when we were inside here and we were at our most vulnerable. And obviously they fear us. Our bodies are we're bigger, stronger, telepathic. We're just incredible creators of beings, and they fear us absolutely. And so they're chicken. They took us. They invaded us when we was at our most vulnerable inside the construct, and we knew nothing about it.
So, question then in regards to the chakras: were the chakras placed into these
Yes.
avatars in order to be plugs for feeding off, or were they
No,
there already?
they were
hijacks?
hybrid clones created by the L. So all of us are in hybrid clones. None of us are actually our original bodies. We were actually unplugged, completely disconnected from our true selves. Our true selves has 12-strand DNA, which I'm sure you probably have heard other people say that. But we have 12-strand DNA that comes with multitudes of connecting back to your higher self. It comes back to being strong, huge. We're much bigger than we normally are. Our creativity and intelligence is huge. We're being completely and utterly reduced to nothing in here deliberately.
So the process is ongoing in terms of destroying the VAR itself, or the construct
No.
that it's brought in, or because why are we destroying Ed? What
The control
Ed
mechanism.
key, because he was the one that was. We needed to get time inside the construct to be as close, if not the same, as it is outside. That was the main problem, that they deliberately chose to add time because it's another object, another problem.
you mean this theory that Dee and I have been playing with, that they've inserted at least 1,000 years into the last two?
Easily, yeah, if not two.
I think it's more like 4 out of the last
5
has been inserted.
So by destroying Ed, we're getting outside the construct and inside the construct to match up again in time, which could explain the Mandela effect.
Exactly.
Where does CERN fit into that then? Is CERN an attempt to...
I have quite big questions on that one.
Is CERN helping that process or trying to stop that process? In your guys' opinion?
I'm not entirely sure what CERN's real thing. It certainly was definitely time-based, or it was portal-based. I'm not convinced one way or another, because it's very hard to understand. It potentially, from my perspective, I don't know what Rosie's view is, but from my perspective, I'm sure by the way that they used the tunnel in Switzerland, they quite clearly were using portal symbolism. And obviously the colour orange, which obviously is associated in Masonic terms to sodomy, and obviously we saw various different sexual rituals as part of that. when you look at it and you know from Masonic terms, it stands out absolutely one after another of sexual rituals, one after another, because it's the tunnel. I mean, it couldn't
Well, look
be
at that
more.
tunnel opening they just did in Switzerland. Oh my God.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought he was
yeah.
referring to the CERN tunnel.
No. The actual tunnel in Switzerland, that opening, where all the world leaders went to, where it was like the president of Italy, the prime minister of France, the Germany was there, Switzerland, a bunch of European leaders, all there for the opening of a fucking tunnel through a mountain.
Yeah.
I've got a question again. Back to that map that we showed weeks ago that showed the ancient map that showed the land masses outside the flat earth map. Are they occupied?
I would say they probably are, but they're certainly not occupied by us. That's for sure. I mean, we are placed in the middle to be an abattoir, effectively, and it's easy to. You're in a prison, effectively, by ice walls. You're not allowed to go farther than that. You're allowed only to stay within the land masses that we provide. All other land masses probably could have black projects on. For example, one good thing you could try is sending up rockets to space, whether it be the space shuttle or whatever it is. You could land them on those sides quite easily, and then after a couple of weeks later, you can just like return them back as if they come back from by magic. These things are easily done and hoaxed against the population of the world.
But these other land masses outside this ice wall, let's assume it's exactly as presented, they're still inside the VAR, they're still inside the matrix, are they not?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, hold on. When you run an experiment, you always have a control. When you run an experiment, no matter what kind of experiment it is, there's always a control.
A control group.
So a control group. So are
they the untainted control group?
Are they the untainted control group? Like this is inside the ring of ice, whatever, in the matrix, this piece where we're stuck, whatever it feels like. And then outside, something external that would be outside, for example, this Petri dish, there's another Petri dish that is the control that all things have to go back and forth on.
Well, I was always going back. I think when Ben, was talking to you, and a good few shows ago now, and I thought when you were discussing it, I thought you was going to say it, but I was thinking perhaps our real selves are actually still living on the outskirts on this wonderful utopia, and they can see absolutely nothing is wrong. It's like turning their TV set to a different channel. They're completely oblivious that anything is wrong, whereas they've cloned them again and again and again, put us inside our little part, and we're completely disconnected from the whole of the system. Whether that's true, I don't know. It's just a hypothesis that I thought of that would explain why they never wake up, that they're running their lives separately on one of these islands, and it's heaven, and there's nothing wrong.
Which one specifically?
The ones where you go up and you see everyone who's just
fucking around, oblivious, laughing and joking and thinking everything's all peachy keen. Yeah, I get it. Fuckers.
But I think that's still up above. But I think that their avatars are actually running on those islands. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So you're still doing what you're doing, which is going to these white rooms above and going, wake up. You know, your people are killing and so forth, but they're watching a different TV channel. They're actually watching their avatars on the outskirts of the VAR, and everything's hunky dory.
They're watching Friends. Meanwhile, we're in Game of Thrones. Thanks.
Absolutely. That's how I think that's why they won't wake up. Because
they are
to them,
waking up now, though. Do you think?
I think we inside here are waking them up. I believe that you and Danny have definitely gone upstairs and talked to these people. You're obviously part of the waking up process, but I think you're also participating as part of getting us out. I think all of these people that are probably watching today probably don't realize it, but they're probably doing the same. I don't believe that people are awake and not actually doing something above.
Yeah, well, we've had some experiences.
Yeah. Do we really? No, let's not go there, please.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that do happen, that or have happened over the last 6 months, that I turn around and find out that Rose said would happen in 2012, 2013, 2014, or even before, including this global wet down, right?
Yeah.
So when did she talk about that, and how did she explain it?
Yeah, what was the science behind it? I didn't catch that.
I can't remember the dates in time, but basically it was quite some time ago now. And she always explains the fact that when we have to admit and come off our pole, the emit process is effectively creating the chip, laying the egg, and then the emit process is to leave, to come off the pole and go home. The emit process apparently is extremely hot. This is the reason why we're trying to get the wet down, but also some areas around the world are getting incredibly high temperatures, because it's still part of the emit process. So you're getting two things. You're getting the cooling around certain countries using these, I think it's called the omega block patterns, whereby you can see like there's like this very distinct pattern of raining all going across the world. And the wet down basically allows that landmass or land masses to cool down. So when we go through the emit process, it cools down Eve or Earth or whatever you want to call her, and allows us to go on to the next process. And as I say, not everyone, unfortunately, is experiencing the weather. Some people are experiencing extreme heat, which is unfortunate part of the process. So win some, you lose some, but hopefully most people can bear with us and not worry too much about the heat, and just either enjoy it or stay indoors and make sure that you take precautions, air conditioning, and make sure that you stay cool.
So these visions that people have been having for years about a dome or a wall or a veil or whatever coming down, I've heard so many versions of this story over the years, whether it's, en masse, people just rush to the wall and start tearing it down, or doorways or portals open up, and it's very much the image of the snow globe kind of experience, and then portals or doors open up. Yeah. With some of them, there are these beings, these big sentinels almost guiding us out. Some see it just start to break down like a computer program. There's lots of different variations on the theme, but it's a very distinct theme. And that what's on the other side of this is just extraordinary and beautiful, and it's heaven on earth, so to speak. There's a very different version that Yellow Rose kind of tells, which is beyond anything I can imagine, really. But do you want to tell the audience what the process is?
Okay, so I briefly just talked about the egg. Now, Eve has to lay the egg. The egg is us, the people that were lord up, that were good, that weren't evil, who actually learned their lessons within the construct of being loving beings, and had children, looked after them, etc. And that is then creating the egg, as they call it. I'm not entirely sure the full ins and out. As I understand it, that's what happens. She has to lay the egg. And once that's happened, we then have the emit process, which you'll see it pulse. You can see like a pulsing down the pole. Sometimes it's completely bright light, white all the way down, and sometimes it goes back up, and all you can see is just like the little ball of the Earth. And apparently that's what's happened at the moment, or it's starting the flags.
Let everyone know, when you're saying you can see these things, there are cameras. The Sol 24 camera, I think, is the predominant one. Is that right?
It has quite a few cameras, the Sol 24 one. Obviously, there are obviously Seki or Sechi or whatever you would like to call it.
NASA, etc.
That do show the extraordinary
stereo. There's a load of them. I mean, each one has their own benefits. Some of them have high res stuff, which if you're looking for video or audio. Or if you're looking for like audio or video enhancement of those images, then it's best to go to Seki Lasco, whatever, directly and download the images and see them better. Sol 24 seems to have some high res, but has quite a lot that are just simple, I wouldn't say thumbnails, but they're not quite the quality that I would look. But yeah, you can go to those military cameras that NASA has, and you can examine them. They're quite available to the general public. Most people don't even know what they're looking at. So for NASA's point of view, they don't really care. They only care when someone looks at something and goes, what the hell is that?
What the hell is that? Wait, did Jupiter just explode?
Look at the sun and you can see it exploding like great big plumes of fire. And they say, oh, but they're CMEs. It's like, no, they're not CMEs. You on the SDO cameras, you'll see what they call CMEs. You can see like a little flame just burst outside this so-called sun picture or CGI version of the sun. And then you look at the cameras on Lasco, Stereo, Soho, etc., and you see these humongous, great big flames that are going out like about, I would say, 20, 30 times the size of the sun. And they're saying they are CMEs? No, because if that was a CME, we would have been, and we take their heliocentric stuff as being truth, we would have been fried.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So they are not CMEs.
in front of us. What would have happened to them?
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, Mercury and Venus would have been fried long ago. No, I mean, I've said this multiple times when you look at the various stuff. Is these images are just, yeah. So what they call a CME, and then they say, oh, we'll just get a glancing blow. And I'm like, yeah, I just saw that thing come off the sun, and I know the Earth's position, and you're calling that a glancing blow? Yeah, no, there's something doesn't ring true here.
But I mean, when you see some of the activity and how none of it seems to happen right when it's totally Earth facing, it's just lucky, I guess. We're just in that magic sweet spot.
Well, that's something that NASA just doesn't want to answer.
Yeah.
In the same way that so-called comets go round and then hit the middle and then they explode. When they're saying that the comet is made of ice, but apparently ice, when it hits the sun, makes like huge, great big explosions, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And it also gets that close to the sun that they can actually do a whole trip right
Absolutely.
around
That's another thing.
Or nothing.
It can circle and it can hit the sun and it makes a huge, great big explosion that goes off in 4 or 5 different ways. But apparently that's ice and nothing else, and it just hits the sun and it makes an explosion. So, as I say, even from a logical point of view, even if you don't understand the suns, when NASA starts telling you that they're comets and they're making huge explosions, you can clearly say that they are lying through their teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's not even go.
Even if I'm completely kosher with everything that's been said and presented so far, the next part really gets me. It sounds like it's too science fiction for me, and even that, for me to say that's probably something. But this business about coming up out of our bodies and rushing to the egg or the whatever, And then, can you explain this next bit? Because
Okay, so basically what you described, or what people are describing, is when we stand out of our bodies. So they're saying their dreams. So they're actually talking about them actually standing. The event has happened, and they're now standing up out of their bodies, and they're now outside the construct, and they're running towards the ships to leave the construct and hopefully watch the rest of us come out too and watch them go into the pit. That I'm sure that's basically what people are seeing. Now, whether or not they are seeing this as a dream, or whether or not they're seeing that as a timeline, that's something that I'm quite interested in, because I've had dreams where I get on the train, or I get on I have like sort of fights in the astral or whatever, and some of these dreams that people are talking about, it does sound like, you know, that people are actually seeing themselves, I think. So whether or not one of the timelines has happened and they've actually left, so one of their clones that they're slightly attached to via their higher self, they're actually seeing them leave. I don't know. It's so complex. The technology.
Someone wrote in the chat room just then. So our spirits come up out of these avatars, and
yes,
leave them behind.
Yes.
And
go where?
Go where exactly?
Thank you.
Well, we then return to our higher selves. We merge with our higher selves, our true selves, our indestructible bodies, and then we leave.
Everybody, or are there?
Well, out of 7 billion of us, only 2 billion are going home.
No, I
don't. Whether they're background people, whether or not they are reptilian or L or Moloch or whatever, we certainly know that they're here. We don't know whether or not they're hiding in plain sight under holographic technology, or whether or not they are actually.
But just backdraw people. Yeah,
okay, so this.
Okay, I guess.
All right. For those of us who kind of go, there's not enough people. If out of the 7 billion, only roughly 2 billion are in fact human, and the rest are made up of extra copies, clones, backdrop people, and the reptilians and the bloody whatever else. Because we've talked quite a bit about backdrop people.
That's true.
And creators. Dee's got a thing that only. How do you explain it? Not everybody is a real creator.
Well, no, just my theory is the fact of those that are, I'm going to use this word and I'm going to get shot for it. I know those who are real, the real people, the people who are awake, if you want to say, but versus the backdrops. It's like I talked about the whole thing about game mods. Like when you play a game and you have the person who's the player in the game, and you can have an online gaming format where you have all these players are in the game and they're real, and then you have these kind of background people that are programmed within the game who you can talk to, you can interact with, ask directions to how to get to whatever place, but they're part of the matrix, if you will. And that those that are the plugins, if you will, or those that are plugged into the matrix, don't have the ability to create on the level of those who are unplugged from the matrix, or are, for lack of a better word, real players, real.
We don't know that there's 7.3 billion on the planet.
No, there's actually closer to 9.
I reckon it's less. Not more.
Well,
you're right. That's the thing. That's what I've always said, is that if you take government figures, then how do you know that figure is correct? Just because the government says that there's supposedly 7 billion, we're all evil people because we're polluting the planet and we're doing this, that, and
Look at the statistics and how they add them up. They conflict with one another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they say that we've got a declining birth rate. That's one thing.
Yeah.
I think the numbers are fudged in order to support some sort of overpopulation program.
I agree.
Yeah, and I agree. My only reason why I've always said the numbers are actually much higher is a conversation that I had when I was in Bangkok with a friend of mine. Her family, she's half Thai, half American, and her family was very highly connected. And I had a conversation with one of her uncles, and he talked about the fact that basically the official population of Bangkok at the time was like 7.5 million people. And the guy laughed. He was like, "Are you kidding? We've got more than 15 million people in the city." But most of those people are unregistered. They're outside of the consensus. He said, so we officially have, 7.5 million people in the city by, official enough accepted numbers. But the actual fact is the numbers are at least double that because of the amount of people who are in the city that are unregistered, they're outside the system. Literally, they're uncounted. And it was the same thing. I had a friend in Bombay who said the same thing about Bombay. It's like the numbers in Delhi and Bombay are that they officially give are so much lower than what the actual numbers are.
And look how much of this planet
is empty.
Empty.
Exactly.
Vast,
I agree.
Vast expanses of
empty.
Nothing.
Empty.
Well, look at the financial system. They've run out of consumers per se, so they can't keep expanding. So look at all the financial games they're playing to keep it going.
Yep.
And wasn't there also this whole argument that you could fit everybody on the planet in the state of Texas and give them an acre and that everybody would fit?
Yeah. They said the same thing about the UK, that everyone could sit on the Isle of Wight. Everyone in the UK could just stand on the Isle of Wight, which is a tiny little island on the middle of nowhere at the bottom of the UK. So yeah, we clearly have a lot of land. It doesn't make sense. We're just pushed into areas where the government just so-called builds houses. Yep. So again, you're falsifying the fact that there's no land by building houses in specific areas clumped together, and you obviously buy a house because that's the only way you can do it. You can't go and buy land and build a house unless you have substantial amount of money or the knowledge to go and buy land from some landowner. And let's face it, we know the Queen owns 2/3 of the world land. So
we know all about land here.
Oh yeah, I'm Canadian.
Yeah, so effectively, you've got a problem trying to get land in the first place. How you can own 2/3 of the world's land, I have no idea.
So from this perspective, what happens next? Does Ed have to be completely destroyed and cease to show up in our skies? And then what? I mean, what happens?
I'll volunteer. I have no problem. I have no problem. I'll go fucking kick his ass. Seriously, let's just get this over and done with.
Well, Ed, we don't see. This is another thing that people need to realise, that the sky is just a planetarium. It is literally what we go to in, I don't know, sort of places in cities where, the planetarium, you go sit down, you see the stars twiddle and la la la, and again, it's like the orrery system. It's all fake. It's if you watch the North Star and you then watch time-lapse videos of the stars go around, they go around in circles, perfect circles. Now, to prove that point of the fact that it's just a load of old lies is the fact that the Earth is travelling at just over 1,000 miles per hour. Then we're talking about the fact that we then travel around the sun at 600,000 miles per hour. And then then our solar system goes around the whatever it is, the Orion galaxy now, instead of the other one. I can't remember what it was now. So effectively, we should be seeing corkscrews in the sky, technically, not circles. So again, it just really proves that it's just a planet in a planetarium sky, and what we see there is just a pack of lies. It's just light bulbs.
And occasionally they fall out of the sky and hit down
Yeah, they do.
Vietnam and Bolivia, and
Yeah,
Canada, Australia.
And I think basically the chemtrails is a when I was young, many years ago with dinosaurs, obviously, we had clear skies. You can look up into the sky and you can see it was mesmerizing as a child. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Now we don't have that at all. They just it's city pollution, or it's light pollution, or it's whatever it is. No, it's not. We know us to look at the sky anymore. Why don't they want us to look at the sky anymore?
Because half the light bulb.
It's a really peculiar thing, and we're seeing more of these videos on YouTube where a lot of people are firing either rockets into the sky, proving that it can't go any further. We're seeing videos where they've got huge, great big telescopes, and you're seeing like a water effect across the lights, as if like the light bulbs are actually in the firmament with the water below, or it's actually they're water cooled potentially. I don't know it, but they certainly don't look like stars. When you look at them, they have like a rippling effect, like water across these so-called stars once you start looking at them through telescopes.
Yeah, we've actually shared some of the videos of that footage on the shows over recent weeks.
And SpaceX, the video of the rocket coming back down to land back down on the pad, and you see it like splash water, and it's above the clouds, and it's got water all of a sudden on the camera lens.
Yeah.
I wonder what
This doesn't make any sense.
Mud puddles in space.
So what's next, Adam?
Well,
We've got the week down right now. We've got Ed being whacked about. What's next?
as I understand it, we're just literally going through the last final phases. The last thing was that Rose posted, I think yesterday or the day before. The polls weren't lit up anymore, which basically indicates that the process is finished, or the emit process or has finalised. Before I came on, Rose also posted another picture from the cameras, which sees the flags actually starting to rise up towards the construct.
Do you have some of these pictures handy on your computer that you could share with us?
Not at this moment, but I can certainly post them later on. Okay. But yeah, they effectively have the flags actually turning up. And again, it's one of those things that you can actually physically see when you start looking at these images. They're not something that you can go, oh, that's not a flag, or that doesn't look like this, or it doesn't look like that. And I think a lot of people's ego, because we've been lied to from birth, and we go to school and we learn all of these different things, and then you're told this is a load of pack of lies, that it's hard to sort of accept the fact that these poles are just part of an orrery system, and we're seeing that our construct is moving. We see the construct is pulsing. We can see the flags starting to appearing, and then you suddenly realise that this is not right. This is not a heliocentric universe we're talking about. This is some kind of clockwork or computer system we're looking at. And the abyss is a good example where NASA puts these sort of camouflage netting over the top of these images to give, again, the illusion of space, where you see stars. When they're not stars, there's no stars at all. When they're masking, what they call masking, which is where this camouflage goes over the top, firstly, you can see the eye. The eye is absolutely so obvious when the masking fails. It's so like big
the eye then, we haven't
line. The eye is a portal which meets the third heaven, shall I say, where we came from. And it is basically a portal between heavens. It was there as a proper tool to move set, to talk to the other races, to discuss things. You were given what they call the Ankh. You see, pictures of the Egyptians with the Ankh, and that is actually what they call a system key. And that system key is allowing the portal to be opened and closed. When we were dragged through, the portal was opened, and then they closed it, and then they broke it. They stopped anyone else coming after us, and that's left us basically sitting there in the abyss, completely vulnerable in our current state.
So if I was just to simplify this and talk about dimensional levels, you said 3 heavens, or the 3rd heaven. What is that? What's the difference between that and the first and second, firstly?
Well, if you look at the Vatican coat of arms, what they call the Holy See.
2 keys.
The Holy See is their arms. That basically it's 2 keys, 1 silver key, 1 golden key, and there's a crown, and there are 3 parts of the crown at the top. There's red, what you would like to call it, rope or ribbon or whatever, that goes through the keys itself, the actual round part of the keys.
Yep.
They are representation of the portals of travel. The silver key is the underworld, the key to the underworld. And the golden key is the gate to mankind, which is the gate to get to us. And the other 3 kingdoms is I assume, presumably the tree of life, or the other kingdoms above us. And you can see this if you go to, or you just do a Google search for the Holy See. It's basically right in your face.
With that key symbol. Yeah.
Other people might not, and it's quite interesting for people to research that, because it's quite something that you suddenly realise that you've got like symbolism that the Vatican has right in your face all the time, and once you suddenly realise what it represents, it's something else that it clicks in your brain, and you suddenly go, oh, I see. And then you start seeing it in other places, and then you go, oh, I know what that is, because that's relating to the Holy See.
So a portal existed. We were pulled through that portal down into the abyss, and then the portal was closed.
Yes.
And has a new portal been opened? Go back up?
Effectively, I believe that the portal has been opened because we see these wonderful light images of I can't remember what actually of this. I think it may be high stars ahead, and they show just literally what they call whiteouts. This beautiful divine white light that just comes in from there, and it's been raising our vibrational levels, because we've been stuck in the abyss for such a long time that our vibrational rate has actually lowered, because that's how they live in here. They can't live above. That's why there's like 3 sections. There's like heaven, the abyss, and the underworld. And the underworld is obviously a much lower vibrational evil limit, vibrational frequency. And the abyss was almost like a...
Yes, you're telling me.
Sorry?
There's a place worse than this.
Yes.
No,
Not going
no,
that
I'm
far,
sorry,
right?
dude. I just don't believe there's nothing worse than this.
And like I say, that the reason why we didn't go into the underworld is because we cannot survive in the underworld. It is so low vibrational. So the abyss was the only place that we could actually go in.
It was as low as they could take us without killing us off.
Exactly. But the underworld exists. It is extremely horrible, evil.
Okay. Okay. So we still need to get to it. What's next?
So what's next is hopefully once all that's all done, we should have from what I understand from Rose, we shall have what they call the global announcement, and after the global announcement, we will have the show.
Okay. So what's the global announcement?
Global announcement?
Like? What do you mean?
Well, the global announcement I'm not too sure whether or not we will hear it through speakers, but I know we will have the show, which will then be presented all these beautiful lights in the sky, and it will be played with music, and then a huge, great big white flash of lights, not horrible pain light, but a flash of light will flash across the whole of the construct, and we stand, and then we leave.
Okay, so assuming for a second that is exactly, it could play out exactly as presented, and it's supposed to go that way. Would things like blue beam and other technologies have been developed in order to try and mimic that scenario, so that we can be, instead of standing up out of our bodies and going left, we go right?
Well,
this whole process.
This has always been the thing that always worried me at the back of my mind, even though I still believe that the Yellow Rose for Texas material is true. There's always, because we've been lied to from day one, it's really hard to actually put that at the back of your mind and say, are we going to be taken again? It's one of those things where what is better, staying in here or going? I don't know.
All I know it was somewhere worse.
Yeah, I don't want to go from frying pan to fire, so to speak.
We've already done that.
I mean, again, it's something that obviously, has been said and talked about, and it's again something that you either believe that it's all going to end, and I think it will end. I think that what we're seeing is on the cameras that they are destroying the vase. We saw Jupiter, or allegedly Jupiter, being destroyed by the mob, and the mob is almost like the emergency services have like a tool to open up cars. It's like the jaw. I think they call it. What do they call it? The jaws of something.
Jaws of life.
The jaws of life. That's it, exactly. And that's what the mob effectively did. They actually shivved. They put like a shiv into Set's server to allow the Allied forces and everyone into the server, and anything that's going towards the mob, which is, we saw obviously, I think you saw it and I posted it, that Jupiter went towards the mob and was completely obliterated and was completely blown up. So again, what we're seeing is like Ed is being blown up. We're seeing vase being blown up. So I'm looking at it as a positive thing, that we're seeing destruction of stuff outside, and that to me is more of a confirmation that everything is better than it, and it's going the place the way that everyone wants it to be.
I've talked a couple of times over the years about this sense of expectation that I've had all my life of an event, and it would have to be on the scale you're talking of to actually meet the level of expectation I felt. Whether it looks like that or not, who knows? But there has been a question that came up in the chat room, and that's for you, Jeff. Does any of this correlate with any HK information?
It does. So we're in the abyss with all your we call them, well, Steve calls them interdimensional interferences. So but one of my main questions is, being down here in the abyss as spirit, we've taken on trauma. You have to resolve that trauma to move forward. Are you saying this event resolves all that trauma and we just stand up?
No, as I understand it, at the point that we stand, we remember everything. We remember past lives. We remember who we truly are. We remember past events and lives, etc. Here. We also remember our true families, or not true families, but families that we've had in the past. Obviously, our current family that we've got, but obviously we have family that we've had in the past in different times. We have family members waiting for us. So effectively, we are moving forward, as far as I'm concerned, to that process where everyone is going to stand up and, you know, remember everything, and the trauma that we go through will be healed, as I understand it from Rose, that we will be healed, either physically, because obviously, although we're indestructible, I think some of the torture and everything that's been done to us inside here that we probably don't realize, that we're going to be healed. And there was talk about us having those horrific memories erased from our memories, all the bad ones, keep all the good ones, but remove all the bad, so humanity can move on. Because otherwise, I think you'd have like psychological trauma for the rest of your existence.
See, I've had a different kind of view on the idea of the concept of, you know, basically when you wake up. And there's been a lot of talk over the years, a lot of people put forward the thing of how the wake up process has to be gradual because of shock, because of trauma, et cetera, et cetera. And the one thing that is always, for years, has stuck with me is the fact of, if we all woke up 5 minutes from now and we all knew exactly what had played out, the history, the why the construct was made, the how it was made, the why we went in, etc. If we all instantaneously remembered all of that, trauma in and of itself becomes moot. It's healed. Any
It's
trauma
like having
that
a really bad dream and then waking up and then not being attached to the dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is the whole thing. If you're not attached to it, how can I explain it? When you fully understand, comprehend the who, what, where, why, when, and how this all took place, the trauma that you have gone through becomes, there's an answer to it. I think half the reason people have trauma is the unknown. Why did this happen to me? How did this happen to me?
Right.
That is the worst of the trauma. When you stand up,
observing everything.
you're
So once you observe it, you know, okay, that's how.
Exactly. And then you have the understanding of, like, not only how it happened, you also have the closure and knowing, like, okay, it's over. It's over. You move on. And you know that that was a dream, or it was an act that you played in a movie, a part that you played in a movie. It was, do you know what I mean? It was a video game that you were playing that you got so caught up into that you were, we all, kind of like the big closing scene last night in Game of Thrones. We all watched the last episode of Game of Thrones last night. And literally, like, Nick and I were like, yeah, I need a cigarette. That was so good. I actually need to have a cigarette. You get caught up, but once it's over, if you stand up and you have the full memory of knowing that that was that, not this, not me, it was that, then what healing is needed? I think the act of standing up heals all trauma, because the trauma isn't real, per se. And I'm not, sorry, I don't mean to say it that way, because I know a lot of people will get upset. I don't mean the trauma isn't real, because we feel it. Anything that we feel right now is absolutely 100% real. But
it's all about perspective.
It's about perspective.
When you're in a dream and you have a traumatic dream, it's as real as can be.
When the monster's chasing you through the big, dark, dank cave, it's as real as you want it to be. But when you wake up, the monster's not there anymore. It's over.
So what are we supposed to be doing now? I mean, you said the Roundtable Show is helping us wake up above, but what is everybody else doing? Or does this violate the rule of don't do anything, just wait?
No, fuck
said we
that
can't do
shit.
that. That's
I
two things in this whole story that can make people uncomfortable, including myself, which is we don't have to do anything because we're about to be rescued, so that there's that whole savior thing going
Which
on.
I don't like.
Which I don't like. So can you clarify that? Because a lot of people hear this information and think, oh, there's this father and allied forces that are going to come and save us and we don't have to do anything. That's not what's going on here, is it? This is about us waking us up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, when I post things, I have people obviously that read my stuff and they appreciate it. Although people that I'd probably genuinely my friends from school or work or whatever, they probably think I'm a loony. And they do question it, and they sort of, what are you talking about? What is this? What is that? And then you try and explain it, and they've got no clue what I'm talking about, or the fact that it's just you're just a loony. You're talking about flat Earth. I mean, even just saying flat Earth to someone is unbelievable to some people. They want the concept of living anywhere else but a planet just won't wash with people. So yeah, there is no savior meme. Because it's in my opinion, I think we're all saving ourselves, and I think all of us are definitely doing that. We are people that are on the show, people that are listening to the show, people that are even aware of like the Rothschilds or the Bilderbergs or the Rockefellers. I think that any of those people that suddenly realise that these people are evil, that they are using humanity in any shape or form, that even that in its small self is enough to wake up people to where they live and the situation in the world. And that's important. And I post stuff not just from, you know, my people that follow me, but I think it's good for people to wake up and realise that once you realise that you've been lied to, then people then start to investigate the possibilities of other things that I've talked about, whether it be, you know, NASA. You know, go to the cameras. Go look at NASA's cameras. If you don't believe me about, you know, the Yellow Rose for Texas stuff, that's fine. What I would suggest to people,
for an explanation.
go to NASA, go look at the cameras, go to the forums and ask questions. What is this? What is that doing? That looks like it's firing a gun. That looks like it's like sending a missile into the sun and then it's exploding. Can you explain that to me? Do that. That, you know, as I say, go and research the holographic universe. That's quantum physics. Go research the, you know, string theory. Again, I'm not asking you to believe anything that I've said. That's something that I've put Masonic, you know, stuff together. I've put obviously Egyptology together, and all of those subjects is the Yellow Rose for Texas stuff is just a gel. It just sticks everything else together. But I would say if you're not sure, please go and actually research those things. You know, the holographic, the string theories, the NASA. And go and research to see whether or not that starts to make sense to you, that they're just telling you lies. Once you're at a point where you're quite happy that yes, something's not quite right, NASA's telling lies, or you know, quantum theory is talking about the double slit experiment, and when you observe it, there's two different, you know, there's an outcome if you observe and there's an outcome if you don't observe. So hang on a minute, how does that work if you have a different outcome if you don't look at it? So we now know that the holographic system is intelligent. It's not just a holographic system, it is actually alive. It is artificial intelligence that it is fully aware that you as a person, when it looks at certain things, it has a reaction, and it will change depending on whether or not you look at it or somebody else looks at it.
It knows it's being watched.
Absolutely, and that's weird in itself. That's not organic. And I've tried to ask people, you know, if you think you're on an organic planet, how does that work? That does not make any sense. You cannot have an experiment that knows you're watching it if it's organic. It doesn't make any sense.
I want to go back. I'll just jump back to the question we were just talking about.
Let's get
About-
there too.
About, you know, basically
What do you do?
the savior meme. What do you do? Well, I want to put, I'll do a what if, because, you know, we haven't had that many this time. We've talked about the 100th monkey for years. We've talked about that. But we've always looked at it as a down here, right? The 100th monkey here on this planet, reality, whatever, holodeck. What if that 100th monkey is not here, but it's, we have to wake up our higher selves up there, and it's the 100th monkey up there. So therefore, our job down here to wake up as many people as we can to help them wake up the guys, their avatar drivers upstairs, however you want to call it. This is all part of the process.
Which going
I think so. I think that's basically it is.
going back to trauma, in this reality, you have to clear enough trauma so that you can start to critically think and question about the concepts that the show is about.
Yeah, there's a whole letting go of a lot of
Attachments, programs,
and,
and then that wakes up your bigger avatar.
That was a very interesting show from last week when you were talking about the attachments or lack of the resolution of relationships where people have started to, you know, turn apart from each other, and Rose has talked about this again months ago, if not maybe over a year or so, I believe. I'd have to look up the dates, but she was saying all along that as we move towards leaving the construct, our relationships in here become less meaningful. We try to get less of an attachment to the constructs and our feelings and emotional attachment to this place. And when we leave, you might have, I don't know, hundreds of children. You may have virtually loads of mothers. Your extended family is probably huge, and these are the people that weren't even in the construct at the time. We're talking about people that actually were above that weren't in the construct. So we're talking quite a complex transformation from the construct to get out of it, and it's not, you know, going down the supermarket type of scenario that people think it is. And I've tried to explain it to a lot of people that this system is slowly degrading, and I think we're seeing various different aspects of the collapse of the system, and I think the emotional state is, again, I think, further proof that we're not unloving anymore, but I think we're trying to unattach ourselves from the construct again.
Yeah, the Mandela effect is helping with that.
in a big frickin' way right now.
You're right. 2 weeks ago on the Collective Imagination, I think I said, this show, that we're going through a process of learning not to be attached to anything. And the next day, I had to disattach myself from the Collective Imagination show. So just as a little announcement, there won't be a Collective Imagination show tomorrow again either, or for the foreseeable future. It's taking a hiatus until I can ascertain where that needs to go, or if it needs to go. I don't know. So sorry to everybody who was looking forward to that tomorrow, but I will keep you posted as to what's happening as we move forward with it. But so that was a big one for me, and it hit me the day after, which was kind of weird. There's this gathering throughout 2014 when we were in Morocco. There were periods where a lot of us were having intense dreams, visions, and etc. about what we were calling the gathering. Sometimes we called it the party. Sometimes we called it something else, the event. But it was along the lines of a celebration where people came together. And to give one dream in particular, I'll play this one dream out. It was everybody walked into what looked like a huge indoor sports arena kind of thing. And we all greeted each other as in the people that we know right here, right now in our lives. And then we went off into different groups to join our families, which were people that we had no relationship with in the here and now, but they were our families.
Yeah.
Some of them were still family members here. Many of them weren't, and they were huge, and we all went off to be reunited. And you were reunited with husbands and wives and lovers.
Parents and children. And,
yeah, through all these experiences and children, exactly like you just said. That is a vivid vision and dream experience. So it's just funny you explained it that way.
Yeah, I think that's, as I say, I'm not entirely sure whether or not that's a timeline that you're seeing, because again, people are describing these events. So I don't know whether or not this has already happened in a different timeline, and people have already left the constructs, and therefore you're say, for example, you have a clone that's also connected to your higher self, and they've already gone. Say, for example, their timeline deleted, but their consciousness was then merged. And like I say, that's potentially what people might be seeing, because dreams are not actually dreams. They're like a mishmash of reality in different timelines. And I think we see, I've had dreams where I'm just going shopping. It's like, why would I have a dream about going shopping? It doesn't make any sense. Or I have dreams where I'm fighting, in battles. Again, very weird, and I've no idea why. I've had dreams where I'm in the trenches, and I've been shot in the neck and I'm bleeding out, and then I hear music, and then I just pass out, or I wake up. So is that a memory? That's a memory of the First World War or the Second World War? I don't know, but there's certainly these dreams are coming through somehow, and we are certainly attached to our higher selves, that's for sure.
But, Adam, I don't know if you saw it, but a couple of weeks ago, Dee and I did an impromptu
what the fuck?
Yeah, we called it the what the fuck is happening thing. And at last count, a couple of days ago, it had like 18,000 views, which was just, that's how many people are looking for Mandela effect related videos.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there was a comment in there, because we talked about the fact that dead people seem to be turning up again, right? And there was one comment.
Oh, that's right.
Which was really from the different perspective from this guy who, according to everybody he knows, he's supposed to be dead. So he tells the story of being at work one day, and a guy he went to high school with walks in to his work, turns as white as a sheet, doesn't say anything to him, and then leaves. Comes back in a couple of days later to apologise and says, "Sorry, dude, I didn't speak to you because I thought I was seeing a ghost. As far as I know, and everyone we went to school with knows, you're dead." And the weird thing for him was that there's a big chunk of his life where he's lived in this town that he doesn't remember. He was freaked out because, for obvious reasons, everybody he knows thinks he's dead or went to school with. And we keep hearing stories about this. So people who are sure, absolutely sure, or they even went to their funeral.
Yep.
And now they're finding them on Facebook. And that's, to me, would imply timelines kind of converging. But there are other things that are happening which would imply timelines or reality separating. It's kind of getting confusing as to what we're seeing, a convergence or a separation.
Or literally, again, what we call timelines, just the matrix, the storyline. Is it all that it's just one storyline? And the matrix is so fucked up right now that pieces are being totally scrambled. It's kind of like if you're watching a 4-part video, but you're watching the pieces out of order because literally the entire construct is scrambled. So the glitches in the matrix are making it look like these things are happening.
I'm not sure I'm following.
Well, if it's a computer construct, basically, a pure ones and zeros construct, if the program is falling apart, you get glitches in the program. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that, for example, this guy died on another timeline. It could be that this guy died in another point of the story and the computer glitched and put him back into the story.
Dino, a regular here in the chat room and on the live, had the same thing happen to him. Someone found him on Facebook and said that he'd been dead for 25 years. That's a long time to be dead.
Dino, you didn't tell us.
No.
I had my own sort of Mandela effect as well. I was part of the MAME project, which is the multi-arcade machine emulator, and I was doing all the artwork for it, which is like, you know, things like Space Invaders and stuff like that. And there was a guy that was he took over the project. I just did all the work. I did all the artwork, and he took over the admin of making sure things were put up on the website, etc. And his name was his arcade name was Mr. Do, which is a reference to an old arcade machine from the 1980s. And it was his birthday just before Christmas, I believe, and it come up as his birthday, and I said, "Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Do." And he come back saying, "I don't know what you're talking about, but thanks." And I was like completely gobsmacked that I'd known him all this time, that he'd actually been called Mr. Do. It's his favourite game. And all of a sudden I said, "Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Do." I had no clue what I was talking about. And it was just an extremely weird response that comes back to someone that I've known for probably 10 years.
These are coming up more and more and more and more. I'm telling you, just keep coming up where there's these just glitches where it's like people remember things and don't remember things.
We've had so many people who have never seen any of our shows. They've just found that video, right?
The what the fuck video.
And so I have no idea that we've been talking about this for a while now. And saying thank you because they thought they were going mad, completely mad. People who are convinced that their spouse is not their spouse, thinking that they were dealing with some kind of energetics or demonic
entities or
stuff like that because they thought they were alone. That physical things are disappearing, school photos, stuff like that. You know, all the people have changed in the photos.
Isn't that true before the Mandela effect started? Hasn't anyone, I'm sure everyone has said, "I put that down somewhere and I can't find my purse or I can't find my keys." That happens all the time, and that's been happening since birth. So, you know, I can't believe anyone can say that has never happened to me, that I've put down something and then I've lost it and I never found it. And then guess what happens? You go back and you find it's in the place where you had it originally, and everyone goes, "Well, what the hell happened there?" And then you just go, "Well, I just wasn't looking." And I think that's something that's been going on for a long, long time that people just haven't twigged.
The most bizarre one of those experiences for me was in the bath. I had a crystal with me in the bath, just resting on my body. Close my eyes, open my eyes. The crystal's gone. Gone.
Oh, wait, I had an experience doing that.
3 months later, it turns up in my bedroom in a drawer. Now, there's Seriously? What? How did that happen? I don't know.
It grew legs. Didn't want a bath. It walked out, got dried off, and went and tucked itself away. It did. That's what happened. Crystals do that.
Crystals do that?
Yeah.
It dematerialized and rematerialized in the drawer.
But here's the thing, going back to the whole thing about the video, the what the fuck video, there's now 300 comments on that video. And besides that, I mean, there was a lot of people who thanking us for handling a lot of the Mandela stuff with a sense of humor, because it made them kind of help talk them down off the ledge. They weren't panicking quite so badly because we were taking the piss out of it so badly. But the thing that was overwhelming for me was the fact of how many of the people who commented were like, I've just discovered the Mandela effect in the last 2 days, in the last week, in the last 9 days. Massive amounts of people just waking up to this, and their minds are just like, what the fuck? That to me is a massive indicator. When we talk about the tidal wave in the building and how everything, it seems like each time the wave goes by, it increases exponentially. And we're looking at this last wave of Mandela effect stuff coming through has had a huge effect of waking people up. Even the arguments between the two groups, like for example, the Christian groups, even the arguments have actually woken up a lot of people.
It's going to say that the stuff going on within the Christian groups around this is kind of scary, because you've got the faction who are seeing the changes in their Bible and completely freaking out. Then you've got this faction who say that the word of God cannot be changed, and if you are seeing changes in the Bible, then you are being basically worked by Satan and possessed by Satan. With you. That the Bible cannot be changed, the word of God cannot be changed, and if you say it is, or you see these changes in the Bible, you're possessed by Satan. So we've got more division and separation going on.
Massive schisms going on right now in that.
A lot of denial. Just as much denial possibly as there are people acknowledging this and freaking out. We still haven't heard. We've put the call out a few times for anybody who's connected to somebody who can tell us whether there's any changes in any of the other scriptures. Whether
the Hebrew, the Torah, the Quran,
But I haven't heard anything as yet.
No, I haven't heard anyone reach out to me yet. And I keep asking. I want to know if there's any other.
I had straight hair my whole life, and 2 months ago I woke up with curly hair.
Well, it was really fucked up hair. And I have had for the last 2 weeks. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with my hair.
I woke up 10 years older this morning. Did you notice?
Yeah. we almost did the show with no video on, because Lisa and I were both like, no, this isn't fixable with makeup. This is no video.
I'm just going to read some of the comments. Oh, and I wasn't smoking anything when the stone disappeared. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't actually do that. In a way, I can actually look at the whole Mandela situation as having two edges, not just the so-called bad guys fucking with us at the timelines. It is working as a sort of wake-up call to a group of people who respond to that and the mechanism instead of something else.
Yep.
Well, isn't that something that's quite interesting? Because again, what if the truth is that, well, from Yellow Rose for Texas point of view, all the religions were manufactured.
Yeah.
And they all relate to the cube. You can take like the Christian cross, which is an unfolded cube. You have the tefillin on the Jewish forehead of rabbis, which is a cube.
Which is a cube.
And obviously Mecca obviously is a cube. And all of them obviously, you know, to most people probably wouldn't even recognize or make the connection. And then you have the atheists who probably sit back going, we knew all that, it was a load of old rubbish. But you were duped as well with fake science. all the science that you believed in, and all the evolution and dinosaurs and fossil fuels and all the rest of it, you were lied to, but you were sent into a different direction, and that is why everyone in this place has been sealed by Set fraudulently, and that's why and that is why you are here rather than being allowed to leave, because every time you were sent back in here, you were either sent down the dogma of religion, or you were sent down the dogma of fake science. Either way, they trapped you at every single turn.
That's a question that came up earlier in the chat room too, and I didn't get to it. The seals. Can you talk a little bit about the seals, what their purpose is, what they are, what their purpose is?
The seal is effectively a computer ID. Probably most people would have worked that out.
Like
if you're a holographic system and it's a computer-based system, you would need a computer ID to identify you as an individual within that system. They call that a seal, but effectively it's a subconscious thing that you don't know your number. It's something that your subconscious either can remove or keep or whatever. It's down to what your beliefs are, and effectively the seal is literally only a computer ID. And there are certain people, which won't be named, who were telling people to remove their seals, and obviously if you remove your seal, you won't be able to leave the construct. You are actually identified by this server or the construct by your seal. So if you remove it, you then, you don't become a sovereign being, as people keep on saying. You just become nothing. You become, when we leave, you don't go. You just literally become just smashed atoms in the middle of nowhere. So that's something that's quite important to recognize, that the seal is actually subconscious. It is your ID, and it's your so-called ticket out of this system.
Is that you're tethered to the higher self?
No, it feels like, because we talk, and HK talks about it, and then the whole strawman movement, it's all talked about more in paperwork forms, but contracts of agreement. So are you saying that we get in, through the process of being entrapped into an agreement, that's like getting a nightclub stamp, which is a seal, which is what gets you in the door or out of the door? Or
effectively you're sealed within the system of Set. So effectively your ID or seal is your ID to the system, and you have been fraudulently sealed here by Set, by his educational system, by his religious beliefs that are all relating to Set. Every single religious figure, Jesus is Set. Every single god is actually Set, because his ego was so huge that he made every single god himself.
So this would tie in with what Dee and I've talked about in regards to the Bible, where you've got the beginning stories of the Bible, which sound like the creation itself, and then suddenly it turns from God to God, the Almighty God, or the God,
absolutely,
the Lord High God, and it sounds like a completely different character. And this one is a maniacal, ego-driven psychopath,
asshole,
and it's a distinctly different individual or
who takes over.
It's a takeover.
Exactly. It's almost like the story of what happened in a book form. It's like we came down to Eden, and the snake is obviously the reptilians in the Garden of Eden. I mean, the symbology there is just unbelievable. That they try to associate all these different things. Adam and Eve. Eve is real, but like I say, Adam's supposed to be the first man, but Adam is probably the first hybrid that they were able to create, and the fruit is representation of the education and the knowledge. But the snake obviously is absolutely the invasion of the construct by the reptilian of Set. And like I say, once you...
a different spin on that whole story, though, and you and I have discussed it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the whole thing. In that entire scene, you read that book of Genesis, it's the whole thing of like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and God says, now don't you eat of that. You can eat anything you want, but you can't eat from that tree, because that's the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and that is the everything. And if you eat of it, you will die. Okay, and then the snake comes along in the story and says to Eve, yo, that's all a crock of shit. Go ahead, eat from it. And Eve and gets Adam, and they eat from this tree, and they do. And their eyes are opened, and now they know what's going on. And God comes down and says, you ate from the tree, you're horrible, I'm going to punish you, I'm going to kick you out of the Garden of Eden, because you can't get, if they eat from the tree of life, then they will be, not only will they be knowing good from bad, but they'll also be immortal in physicality. And the whole way that religion presents that is that the snake is the devil, except that when you actually read the book, the only one who actually told the truth was the snake. The snake is the only one who told the truth. The truth said, you're not going to die. This is the one that opens your eyes and gives you knowledge of everything. And they ate it, and their eyes were open, and they had knowledge of everything. And they didn't die. God lied. So wait a second, who's the snake? I don't know. Sorry, that's one of my big things I question.
It's the symbolism, isn't it?
Yeah, no.
It doesn't have to tell you the truth. It just needs to have the symbolism. It's like all the Masonic, like Alice in Wonderland. I mean, how many people don't seem to realise what Alice in Wonderland is? You know, it's a totally Masonic movie from start to finish. The symbolism in it is just ridiculous. But to a child or someone that doesn't realise what the Masonic symbolism is, you watch it with innocence, and you watch it with the little girl that goes down after the white rabbit, and it's to most people, they will watch that and it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just a very cute story with a little fluffy bunny and a little girl.
Sorry, we've actually got over like nearly an hour normal, so pee breaks are necessary. Everything in this construct, as far as I can see, is, I like David Icke's word, inverted. It's inverted from what, it's diametrically opposed to who we really are and how we really want to live. And including the 666, I think everything is a lie. Everything is an inversion. 666 can be related to the number of man, not the number of the beast, as in the satanic figure. That whole story in the Bible with the snake is an interesting one because it can be interpreted a whole number of ways, including the one that Dee just mentioned. There is what is it, 6 carbons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons? Protons? So there's something like that, which is the number of men. Yeah. But anyway, we have gone nearly an hour over. I know it must be past 4 o'clock in the morning or something for you right now. So
coming up to 4.
Thank you for sticking with us. Do you have any questions or what ifs you want to throw out there?
The what if or the pondering after the show or for everybody until next week is, okay, we're here. This is kind of duality. We're here and we're in and we want to get out, which is a duality. But what if there's the third choice? What if this experiment is the third choice? Does that make sense?
What's behind door number 3?
Right.
But you see, that's the trap there is no third choice inside the construct. It's in the same way that, you know, you don't have a vote when you go to the polls. It's only two parties, but both of them are bad. You know, if you go to certain so-called websites that talk about updates from the light, they're talking about Lucifer, and again, people who read that information, they go, oh great, the light workers, and again, that's a typical inversion of the truth, that the light or the morning star is, again, it's just Lucifer. And when you know what certain symbolism states, you can hopefully pick out who's telling the truth, or more importantly, where to stay away when people start using certain references to certain things. And as you say, with duality, that's a good example. There's, you know, people say, oh, there's good and bad, but effectively, at what point do we actually see true free will in the construct? There doesn't seem to be any free will whatsoever. So although we say there's duality, there's good and bad, the choice is, well, there is no choice. You know, it doesn't matter if you vote for Trump or whether you vote for Hillary, you still get the puppet. So is there duality there? Is there a good thing or a bad thing? No, it's just one and the same thing. It's a trap. It's the trick that you have been conned from day one, that there is no out. The only way to actually understand that is to look at the world and understand that every single country is run by the same group of people. There is no Russia, there is no Australia, there is no UK, there is no America. They are all the same people. They pretend as part of a big stage that they're all independent, but they are not. They're not independent. They all run the same thing, and that's clearly obvious when you look at the space programs. All space programs around the world have the same symbology in their NASA or UK space programs. They have, you know, the what they call the vector. And once you know the vector is in China, the vector is in Europe, it's in America, it's in India, it's in Turkey. And when you go through all the list of the space programs, hang on a minute, if you all know about space programs, you are all in it together. And this is the thing, is that we think Putin's like the good boy, you know, the good guy at the moment, but he's playing the good guy. He's been told to play the good guy. It's just the stage. It's in the same way that people think Trump is doing the good thing when he's not doing the good thing. He's actually going to rip probably people into civil war if he continues to talk about you know, Mexicans and border walls and all kinds of stuff. And then Hillary just wants to go to war. So who do you get both? You're going to get the same with Trump. He's still going to go to war over in Afghanistan, Syria, whatever it is anyway, and he's going to make it even worse by having border walls and getting rid of Mexicans, and he's going to rile up the whole of America by having racial hatred against the Mexicans again. So again, there is, you know, we say there's duality, there is, you know, certain things, but in reality, I don't think there is. I don't think there is anything called duality. I think you are the only people that can actually make a difference to your lives and the people that you know, that you love and you cherish. That is the only thing that you have control over, and you should absolutely make sure that you love, cherish. This is what the system was for. Use the system for what it was based for, to love, create, look after souls, create souls. Don't get hooked into the systems of crappy politics, which mean absolutely nothing to your day-to-day running of your house, unless it's more tax, and boy, do they keep ramping up the tax. And to eventually, in the UK, if you think about it,
you should get involved in the whole Brexit thing.
Well, what's the point? You know full well that obviously someone was murdered for to actually get the stay campaign. So
exactly,
you know, so again, you're going to have sympathy for people that obviously were murdered. But again, it's a very, very bad thing to sort of say, but obviously that's what someone obviously was done, whether it's MK Ultra programming, I don't know. But it's certainly very suspicious that someone that was saying they want to leave and then was stabbed to death, to stay, and was a Labour politician, and was said that they were a traitor to their party. They should be leaving, not staying, and everything is just like planned.
Fucking bullshit anyway.
It is, absolutely.
I want to say thank you. I know you've stayed up for the wee hours of the morning, and we do appreciate it. You've done a great job of explaining this perspective. And people will either take it or leave it, or research it, or go within and see what pops.
Absolutely. And again, I would reiterate that, look into like the holographic universe, look into string theory, look into the NASA cameras. Even if it doesn't gel with you with the Yellow Rose for Texas stuff, go and do simple research on something that's so-called scientific. That if you can base yourself at a point where you think that science is real, and then you start investigating and it doesn't turn out to be real, or there's some matrix element to the holographic universe and string theory, which just the final point with the string theory, which I find really peculiar. There's a video on YouTube where one of the main string theory physicists is talking about the fact that they found browser code, which is what Google uses, in string theory.
Browser code and string theory. I can't imagine how that could possibly happen.
But the throwaway comment, which I don't think anyone actually sort of heard, or maybe they did, but if you go back again, he says it's the browser code that they had back in the 1940s.
Yes.
Hang on a minute.
Wait.
Browser code back in the 1940s? That doesn't make any sense. If the internet wasn't even available, why have they got browser code systems back in the 1940s?
You know that CERN was invented in the 40s, right?
Lots of things have been done in the 40s. Cloning was perfected, I think, in the 1940s.
It's all fuck-uppery anyways. Who cares? Seriously, I don't believe anything anymore. Nothing.
All right, we need to go. Some of us haven't eaten at all, and it's after lunch. So again, thanks, Adam. I'm sure this is going to generate a lot of questions. Where can people go for up to date information and continued updates from?
Well, the latest thing with Rose was that Rose decided to leave the Hangouts that were generated by Richard Hatter. The abuse was just phenomenal, and she just couldn't put up with it anymore, and so she has left both of those Hangouts, which is where she released the information. The good news is that she has created her own Hangouts. Unfortunately, you need to be added by a member, and you have to be sort of vetted, as it were, to make sure that you're not
a troll.
A troll, yeah, effectively. If you are known to people and they are genuine, I post them obviously on my own Facebook page. Other people do as well, but it's Rosie's material has been, sort of put into the back burner in terms of promotion, not for any other reason other than the fact that I don't, as a mother, and I think also a grandmother, she hasn't felt necessary to be sort of promoting it, like, monetary value from her posts or anything like that. So I can, if I'm not in the unfuckers room, so if someone wants me to join and I can do that, I can post things in there, and I can ask questions there. That might be another.
I can't believe you're not in there. But we'll
Adam,
in there.
I'll add you to the unfuckers, Adam.
Okay, cheers. Thanks, Danny.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind putting us through whatever veto process we have to go through to get us into that Google Hangout. That'd be great. But we're going to have to say bye for now. Otherwise, I'm never going to get this thing processed because it's going to be too long. So thank you. Thanks to Jeff for joining us on the couch. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Bye for now.
Bye for now, everyone.
Bye for now, everyone.